I'm confused.
No mistakes. Oh, mistakes. It didn't... The thread came out again. Hello, my name is Katie, and usually I make videos about comics and illustrations. But today I'm making a video on how I created a starry themed cloak with room for fairy wings. Now, have I ever created an outfit before? No. Have I ever used a sewing machine before? No. Do I know what I'm doing? Also no, but all creatives have to start somewhere, so here we are. What inspired me to make something was the fact that last year I went to my first Ren Fair and loved it. So this year I wanted to make my own outfit. Last year I also made my own pair of fairy wings, and I wanted to use them this year again. But having a cape or cloak with wings would look kinda weird. So I wanted to design the cloak in a way that I could wear them together. So here's the plan. While at the fabric store, I found a cape pattern called 4139 Macaws, and I plan on using pattern B of this set, which will be the base of my design. But before I could start, I needed to understand how to read patterns. Honestly, all the terminology kind of confused me. Like, what's a grain line, a selvage, or all these notches and symbols? I had to look up what a hem is, which, again, we all have to start somewhere, but as a beginner it can be a little annoying. But after watching some videos on the basics of patterns and sewing, I finally started to understand. So here is a rough sketch of how the current pattern looks, and here are the changes I'm going to make. Basically, I plan on making a back panel that fans out at the end. Looking back, it would have been much more simpler just to follow the pattern already made, but unfortunately, I like to complicate things. This panel won't be sewn on completely, it'll just be sewn on the top, so rather I will keep it open and add in lacing details, which will be removable so I can put the fairy wings in and out. Instead of cutting up the pattern I had, I decided to transfer it onto something else, just so I could keep the original if I ever need it. I ended up using some cheap plastic tablecloth, which worked, but it was easy to rip, so I had to be careful. I took my fairy wings and measured out how wide the frame was, just to make sure the back section was where it needed to be. Because of how complicated this was starting out, I won't be making a template for this. Since the measurements are based off my personal wings, I recommend you measure the width of your wing frame if you are going to follow along and make this yourself. Also, another change I made was to make this cloak a bit shorter, just because I didn't want it to touch the ground when I walked. After making the new template, I taped it together off screen and confirmed that the pieces still work together. Now that I had a plan, it's time to find some fabric. Since I wanted a starry look, I wanted it to be more of a navy color that is also see-through, mainly because I wanted this cloak to look a bit different, as if the stars on the cape were resting on some magical material rather than a solid fabric. Since I had a specific look, it took me a long time to find the right fabric. I considered buying a translucent navy fabric and ironing on the stars and moons, but then I found this fabric. It's the right color and has the stars and moon already on it, so it saves me time. So I decided to get it. I ended up buying like 9 yards, I think. I thought this was much more than I needed, and I would have extra to make other stuff, but actually this was just enough. And that's because a single layer of this fabric alone looked a little too thin and light for me. So I doubled up the material, which gave me the right color and transparency I wanted. Looking back at the pattern, this also meant before I could actually sew the pattern together, I had to first sew the layers together first. Again, I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be, but let's keep going. Again, this part took way longer than it needed to be, because I was trying to find the best way to place the pattern on the design so the stars were all the same way. Because I doubled up the fabric, I had less fabric to work with than I thought. In the end, I decided it didn't matter which way the stars and the moon were facing on the fabric, because from a distance, it all looks good together. So after a while of messing around with the pattern pieces, here is how I laid out the pattern for cutting. I pinned the pattern to the ground and placed some weights on it so it wouldn't move around. Remember, I'm going to make this cape with 2 layers, so to speed up the progress, to make sure that each piece is the same size, I folded my fabric in half and cutted both layers at the same time. Now, I don't remember if I used fabric scissors or just regular ones, but the edges were cut kinda jagged and messy. But I thought I'd be fine because it would be folded over with the seam allowance anyway. So once all the parts were cut, I pinned the 2 layers together and was finally ready to sew. Actually, before I could start sewing, I first had to learn how to use a sewing machine. Luckily, my younger sister had a machine, so I was able to borrow it to make this project. I ended up watching a lot of tutorials on how to thread the machine and how to get this to work. Honestly, I didn't know that there were 2 separate threads that you needed to set up the machine to work, but I guess I learned something new. So after that, I finally got the machine ready to work and made some test pieces before working with the actual fabric. No mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, mistakes. It didn't... The thread came out again.
Oh wow.
I gotta fix that. It was kind of hard at first, but once I started, I kept going. Before long, I was able to sew together the first 2 layers on the first panel. From here, I sewed each panel together one by one. This took quite a while, and there were many times where I had to rethread the machine. Whenever I would turn the machine off and back on, I would need to rethread it again, even if it was already set up from the last time. Don't know why, but either way, lots of progress was made, and now I know how to do basic sewing. There we go. Yo, let's go, look at that. It's together. I did it. Thank you. It was a bit of a struggle with the hood because the notches that I was supposed to draw on the fabric to line everything up weren't there because I forgot to transfer them over from the pattern. So I kinda had to wing it. Not the best, but not the worst, so I consider it a win. Next time, I will definitely get a fabric marker and mark the places that the pattern tells me to. I always would double check which parts I was sewing together because I also don't have a seam ripper. If I messed up, I would have to stop everything and go buy one. But luckily, I was careful and I didn't need it. I still need to buy one though, just in case. Also, all the videos I watched about seams told me to iron or press the seams open so they would lie down more easily. Again, I don't have an iron, so I decided to skip this part. Eventually, I will get one, but for now, it's fine guys, it's fine. You can't see them from a distance anyway, so let's just move on. To finish the ends, I folded the end of the fabric over and did a basic stitch to hem the edges. Now, all the pieces are finally together. I would be done by now, but like I said, I like to complicate things, so time to figure out how to add lacing to the back. I could just hand sew the lace on, but a big part of this design would be that the lace is interchangeable, so that's a no. I thought about putting grommets in, like what you see in corsets or shoes, but I don't have the materials on hand, or know how to use them. Plus, it might weigh down the cloak, so I decided against that. I also thought about adding buttonholes, which would have worked and was lightweight. But I don't know if my machine could do that. I'm sure with more time I could have figured it out, but I found a simpler solution. I ended up taking an elastic string and sewed it on the inner side of the cloak. I left gaps in the elastic that wasn't sewed in, which gave me room to thread the ribbon or string through. This way, I can interchange the ribbon or lace whenever I want. So, all that's left is to hand sew it all together. I didn't know if my sister's machine could handle the elastic, and I thought it would take a lot of time to start, go a bit forward, and then stop again because I had gaps in the elastic that I wanted to leave, so hand sewing it is. Let me tell you, I know I said like there's other parts that were time consuming of this process, but I think this was the most time consuming part of making this cloak. At first, I hated it. It took too long and I made it again hard on myself because I was sewing dark colored string on dark colored fabric with dark colored thread, usually at night. However, once I got to the second and third sections, I found a good workflow and it became somewhat enjoyable. At first, I started pinning these sections that I needed to be stitched and left the open parts blank. But after a while, I ended up taking my white gel pen and I marked where I needed to sew instead of pinning it. That part made it much easier and quicker, and so after listening to a few episodes of some D&D podcasts, we are finally done sewing. It takes time lacing up all of the back, but it's pretty easy. I got some gold color ribbon, but if I ever wanted to hide the lacing, I could always change it to black or navy. And here's a quick demonstration of how to put the fairy wings in and out. I unlace the top section and then slide the wings in. I designed these wings to move up and down, so I folded them in to get them through the sections. After that, I laced it back up, and finally we are done. And with that, it's done! After making this project, I realized that sewing isn't that hard. Once I figured out how patterns work and how the sewing machine works, I think it's something that's very doable and easy for any beginner like me to learn. I'm very happy with how this came out. I think I will change the ribbon eventually because this is kind of thin and I'm afraid it's going to break. So that's the one thing I think I might change, but other than that, I love how it turns out. It's so pretty and sparkly, and it was so fun bringing it to the Run Fair. Will I record more projects like this? Maybe? I'm definitely going to sew more in the future, but I don't know if I'll make videos about that. Mainly because this channel is mainly dedicated to my illustration and comic work. But if you're interested about more creations like this, please let me know in the comments. And also, if you're curious how I made my fairy wing, again, let me know in the comments. I'm thinking about making a new pair because the one that I previously have is starting to rip at the bottom, so I'm creating another design which will eventually be made. I can't make that at the moment because I like to die cut the metal frame because I like it fancy and durable, and that costs money, so if you want to support me on Patreon, it's available for you. I do like the fact that when I pull the hood down like this, I can see you guys, but you guys probably can't see my eyes, which is fun. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, so with that, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye bye!